The phone on my nightstand buzzed at a steady rhythm for far longer than I would have appreciated. I opened my groggy eyes and stared at the pitch-black nothingness above me. For God's sake, who would be calling me at this hour? This better not be some fucking scam or anything. Not again. Last week I got a call from this weird number claiming to be from the Automotive Committee at about 10 p.m. Call me an idiot, but I was so tired after a long day at work, I didn't catch on to the fact that the call was obviously fraudulent for a few minutes too long. Luckily for me, I didn't give out any personal details, but my God has it made me exceptionally suspicious lately. I rolled over to my left and grabbed the glowing phone, seemingly bright as the sun, though I know that's just relative to the suffocating darkness around me. As my eyes adjusted to the new light, I saw first that it was currently 2:22 a.m., and second that I was getting a call from my old pal Alan. We go way back, though the details of our friendship are probably nothing more than a snooze fest to you. All you really need to know is that Alan is not exactly the type of friend your parents would want you hanging around with. He was always unknowingly and unapologetically rude at the worst times, and got me involved in some not-so-scrupulous activities when we were in high school. That was years ago now, though, and these days we don't talk all that often. The closest we get to hanging out is sitting in an Xbox Live party together playing Halo Reach every once in a while, like we used to years ago. It's a fun little nostalgia trip, but I haven't really heard much from him outside of stuff like that. After a moment of consideration, I answered the call and pulled the phone to my ear. "Hello?" I said, as I pretty much always do when answering a call. "Hey Jackie, how's it hanging, my man?" Alan asked in an excited tone. "It's hanging alright, I guess, man, but I was kind of in the middle of sleeping. What's going on?" Sorry, man," Alan said both quickly and dismissively. "Listen, I need you to come by my work for a minute. There's something you've gotta see." "Alan, if you need a ride home, I can't give you one right now. I'm tired as fuck and need to get back to bed," I asserted, trying to speed up our conversation. "Dude, I'll give you $15 right here, right now, as soon as you show up here if you come. I don't need a ride, I've got a car now. I just need to show you something. It's super fucking important, dude. Please, just get in your car and drive over here. My work is a straight shot from your place anyway, just down south on Clover Reed Lane, about 5 minutes. You're not gonna regret it, dude, I promise. And if you do, I'll throw in another 15. Alan's offer was, unfortunately, tempting. I've been trying to get more hours at work to earn a little extra cash lately, but the bosses aren't having it. I don't really have it in me to work a whole other job either, so I'm just kind of stuck in this weird no man's land right now. So $30 extra sounds pretty alluring. And yes, I would be taking the whole 30 because I know Alan is full of shit. He always has been, and he always will be. But that's all part of who he is, I guess, and I'm not sure if we'd even have ever been friends if it weren't for his more than mildly shady behavior. I got in my car and drove down Clover Reed Lane for about 13 minutes, not fucking 5 like that son of a bitch told me, until I got to his work. He worked at some factory that makes disposable plates and bowls and cups and shit like that. I think they supply the generic brand they sell at Walmart or Target or something, though it might have been Kmart. I don't know, it was one of the big ones anyways. I pulled into the desolate parking lot and shifted my gear into park. I looked around for a moment and took in the utter and complete silence and emptiness around me. As is the case with these huge factories that pay workers shit their entire lives, only to cripple them from the hard labor or kill them from the unsafe exposure to who knows how many unregulated chemicals that are going to be banned in the coming decades, the parking lot was huge. In fact, I don't think huge does this lot justice. This parking lot was fucking ginormous. It wouldn't surprise me if it was double the size of a football field. I took a Camel Crush from my pocket and looked up at my clock. 2:55 a.m. I lit the cigarette and took a few draws of the smooth, rich tobacco before popping the little menthol ball in the center of the filter, effectively turning my plain cigarette into a refreshing menthol pleasure. I felt 2 buzzes come from my right pocket, which reminded me I forgot to turn vibrate off on my phone. It was, of course, Alan, saying, "You here, man?" I sighed and typed back a "be in a minute" before taking a long drag off my camel and throwing it on the parking lot ground as I opened my rickety old car door. Walking up to the entrance, I could see Alan waiting for me on the other end of the glass doors. He was smiling, that simultaneously innocent, yet devious smile he's always had, which instantly put my guard up. He unlocked the door and greeted me with a friendly, "Get the fuck in here, Jackie," before grabbing me by the shoulder and pulling me inside. Walking up the stairs to the office where Alan's stationed, I forgot how long it had really been since we'd last seen each other in person. Could it have been years? It wouldn't surprise me. Despite his bad reputation in school, he surprisingly always had a baby face. Though now, just a foot or so away from me, I could see thick, unkept stubble sprouting up all across his face and neck. Made me realize how long ago school really was, and how we were, supposedly, adults now. You know, I always thought as a minor that there'd come a time in early adulthood where I would begin to feel like, well, an adult. But I've come to the realization that that's just not how it works. You feel like a kid, not knowing what the fuck you're doing and barely keeping it together, until you don't anymore. I haven't gotten to the part where I don't yet, and I assume Alan hasn't either. "Alright, Alan, you want to tell me why I'm here?" I asked, following him into his office, which housed dozens of small television screens. He was apparently part of the overnight security here, making sure nobody broke in and stole some highly valuable and sought-after paper plates, or something. He spent all night staring at the screens, and occasionally doing a walkthrough of the entire building to make sure no unauthorized individuals were hanging out on the premises. "Alright, so check this out, Jackie, follow me." He walked over to the other side of the room and opened a door labeled "Employees Only." "Come on through, I'll be right behind you," Alan said, insisting I walk down some dark hallway leading to God knows what. "Bro, you've got to tell me what the fuck's going on here," I said in protest. "I can't, man, it'll spoil the whole fucking thing. It'll only be another minute, just trust me." Alan wasn't really the type of person I could trust, but I decided to fake it in an attempt to get this show on the road. Walking into and down the dimly lit hallway, I heard Alan close and lock the door behind us. I turned around to look at Alan, who just nodded his head forward, instructing me to keep on going. I walked for maybe about a minute before the hallway took a short turn to the left. There was a horribly old elevator there, and when I mean old, I mean you couldn't pay me to get on that elevator, it looked so fucking old. At least that's what I thought, until I remembered the $30 with my name on it, if I played along with my buddy's little game. I begrudgingly got on, and took in the unbelievable sight. The floor of this tiny elevator room was shag carpet, and the wallpaper on the sides of this small room were beginning to peel. I looked at the floor buttons and noticed that despite this building containing well over 4 or 5 floors, there were only 2 buttons. One for the 5th floor, the one we were on now, and one for a floor labeled unavailable. I looked over to my friend, knowing full well which button I was supposed to push. I pointed at it just to make sure, and Alan gave me an excited nod. "You got it," he said. "This thing doesn't seem safe. Are you sure we should be using it at all?" I asked, growing more concerned by the moment. "Settle down, Jackie. I've ridden this elevator at least 5 times. It's totally stable. I mean, you might feel a few bumps and shit here and there, but it's no big deal. All elevators can be a little rough sometimes, right?" I wanted to say, no, that's not how it works at all, but was shorted by Alan reaching over and smashing the unavailable button. The doors closed, and the elevator began its descent. I watched the numbers change from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, and then to a horizontal line. I looked over to Alan, who seemed unfazed by this, so I just looked back forward towards the doors. The ring of an unseen bell indicated that this was our stop, and the doors opened. What I saw before me, I found greatly unnerving. It was a long hallway with no rooms or exits of any kind on either side for the entire duration. At the very end was one rusted metal door with about 5 locks on it. The lights in the ceiling of the hallways were dim and flickering, but even with that, I could tell that this door was heavy duty, and nobody was breaking their way into that room. One of my first thoughts was that this was some security room where they kept their valuables. Maybe the owner of this place is old as fuck and doesn't trust banks worth a shit. I immediately turned to Alan, prepared to scold the hell out of him after thinking he was planning on robbing the place, and decided to get me involved to do it. But I bit my tongue and realized that I don't think a place like this would really have many valuables to store away to begin with. Alan, what the fuck is this? I questioned meekly. To be perfectly honest with you, Jackie, I'm not quite sure, he said, walking first past me, and then turned around. But we're gonna find out. Standing in front of the door, I could see just how beat up and worn down this metal door was. It was rusted to hell, and even the locks looked like one touch should land you in the nearest hospital for a tetanus shot, just to be on the safe side. It was here that finally, Alan decided to tell me what this whole charade was all about. Alright, so I discovered this store here a couple days ago. Working nights like this gets pretty boring, so I tend to wander around, go through drawers, explore rooms, stuff like that. Just harmless shit to help the time pass. Well, I discovered the elevator at the end of that long hallway shortly after I got this job about 2 weeks ago. The employee that trained me told me there was nothing noteworthy down there, and that the elevator was busted. But like I said, I got pretty bored. I walked down to the end of the hallway last week and opened the elevator doors, pressed on the unavailable floor, and watched them close right back up. A minute later, I pressed on the down button to summon the elevator back up, and the doors opened once again. I could tell by how long it took the elevator to open up again after I pressed the button that it was indeed moving, and it wasn't busted like the guy said it was. After a couple days of doing that on my shifts, I decided to gamble a little bit and take the ride myself. I got on, rode down, and lo and behold, found this door. That is pretty interesting, Alan, I said hesitantly. But why did you want me here? To share the discovery with, man, he said, almost giggling. Way before I found this door, I was rummaging through an old filing cabinet in another random little back room upstairs, when I noticed that one of the drawers actually had a false bottom. I used a credit card to get some leverage on the fake bottom and lifted it up, revealing a small compartment with this keychain. Alan lifted a keychain with 5 uniquely distinct and ancient-looking keys on it. Pretty spooky, right? He said with a wink. So, I began, you want me to go through this rusted, shady-looking door with you, and you have no idea what's behind it whatsoever. You woke me up at 2 in the fucking morning to explore some unknown like we're kids again. I want to see my $30, man. He frowned slightly in disappointment, apparently expecting me to absorb some of the excitement that was oozing off of him. Alright, man, I've got the money, Alan croaked. But first, you've got to check out that room with me. I looked at the door that seemed to be aging a decade every passing minute. Whatever, man, let's just get this show on the road. A twinkle returned to Alan's eye as he found the correct keys for each of the 5 corresponding locks. Upon unlocking the highly secure door, he turned to me with a smirk. I returned the smirk, though mine added in a bit of nervousness as well. He turned the ancient doorknob, which I'm surprised didn't break off just from being rotated, and pulled the metal slab open. Inside was pure, unadulterated blackness, just like what I was first greeted with upon opening my eyes to his phone call about an hour before. "You got a flashlight?" Alan asked. "No, I don't got a flashlight," I responded quickly. I did actually have a flashlight on my phone, but I didn't want to play into his game any more than I had to. "That's alright, hold on a sec," he said. He reached in and felt along the inside of the wall nearest him. His eyes darted to the upper left as he focused on his touch. "Wait, I think there's a light switch here. Let me try to flip it. It's stiff as fuck, it's like it hasn't been flipped in a lifetime." After a little effort, I heard the loud click of the switch. He pulled his hand out of the room, and we both watched in bated breath for the light to greet us. But after waiting for more than a moment, I'd had enough. "Alan, this is bullshit. I'm beyond tired and need to get home. Give me my $30 so I can get the fuck." I looked over through the doorway once more to see a tiny light, almost like a candle, sitting on the floor off to the distance, maybe 100 feet away. "You see that?" I asked. "Yeah, I see it," Alan responded, as he slowly began walking in towards the light. I was still too shook from the uncomfortable setting and bizarre circumstances to actually go inside, but I would gladly watch and share this experience with him if it meant I'd get my $30 a little faster. "Watch your step, man," I said, playing my part and helping him out in the tiniest of ways. "I am. There's like nothing in here. I can tell by how loud my footsteps are on the ground here. But goddamn, this room is huge, Jackie. Like, I mean really huge. You're hearing those echoes, right? Because man, they..." At that moment, Alan was cut off by the light switch finally doing its job. The room was flooded with light, revealing this to be barely a room at all. The size of this place. I've never seen anything like it. Even though we were apparently underground, this room was seemingly 20 to 30 stories tall, and was the size of a large warehouse. But that wasn't even the shocking part. At the very end of the warehouse, though it was so large it took up close to half of the space, was an unbelievably gigantic, oversized, red plastic cup. It stood well over 300 feet tall, and straight up looked like an optical illusion, identical to a cup you'd buy in a pack of 20 at the supermarket, except for the fact that it was about 1,000 times bigger, and sat in the middle of this underground warehouse. In front of the big red cup stood the lone candle that used to be the sole source of light. I stared at the anomaly in shocked silence, while Alan started laughing. "Whoa, holy shit, dude!" Alan started. "What the fuck is this shit? A big red cup the size of Montana?" I didn't respond. To be honest, I thought I was probably going insane. None of this made any sense whatsoever, and I was beginning to feel queasy. My queasiness wasn't made any better when the cup began to speak. Now, I wasn't 100% sure it was the cup at first, and believe me, I looked around and really tried to pin down what it was I was hearing. But after the second or third time a loud, raspy, "Touch me," hissed out of the top of the gargantuan cup, I knew what was going on. Or at least, what was seemingly going on. I still hadn't ruled out insanity. Alan was about 40 feet from the thing now and was continuing to walk towards it. I was still too shocked to say anything and watched on in stunned silence as he continued on. I think he's gonna do it. I think he's gonna touch that big fucking cup. God, this is all so fucking weird. "Touch me." The cup hissed again, in a voice so malevolent and ancient, It sent a horrible chill down my spine. Alan was right in front of the cup now, well within arm's length. He looked up and said, "What do you think, man? Should I do it?" Snapping out of it for a second, I responded, "Why are you asking me? We both know you're gonna do it anyway because you're too fucking curious for your own good." We shared a silence in understanding. I saw Alan look up and say, "Alright, I'm gonna do it, man." As he slowly lifted his hand, I saw something begin to bubble up at the edge of the cup, about 300 feet into the air. I couldn't make out what it was at first, it just seemed to be some sort of shadowy movement. But as he opened his hand to place against the dyed red plastic of the gigantic disposable cup, I saw what it was. Bubbling over the corner of the cup came pouring down a waterfall of red liquid. Alan was directly in its line of sight and would be completely washed away by the wave. And so would I. Where's there to run besides back to that elevator where I'm gonna have to wait for it to take its sweet time and finally close the door? Alan was completely oblivious to the fountain of red that was soon to pummel him, and as he pressed the soft flesh of his palm into the shiny plastic, I screamed his name one last time. The phone on my nightstand buzzed at a steady rhythm. I opened my eyes to see the pitch-black nothingness once again surrounding me. How the hell did I get back here? Where's Alan? I grabbed my phone and looked at the caller ID. It was from an unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. "Hi, this is Dale from the Automotive Committee. I wanted to talk to you about your Chevy." I hung up. I looked at my phone once more to see it was 2:22 a.m. So, it was all a dream, I guess. One weird, bizarre, fucked up, yet poetically pointless dream. Those are the best ones, right? The ones you wake up from and just go, "What the absolute hell was that?" They're the most exciting anyways. Even though they suck in the moment, it can be fun to reflect on the fictitious journeys you went on when the moon had the sky. I pulled up my text conversation with Alan and vented to him about how I just had the weirdest fucking dream about him in a text. I sent it his way, knowing I probably wouldn't hear back from him until the morning, since it was so late. And who knew if he even worked at that factory in real life? I sure couldn't remember. But the next day came and went with no response. And so did the next day. Like I stated earlier, we didn't talk much these days as it was, so it didn't really alarm me that much at all. A week later, I decided to hit him up again by giving him a call. I know nobody actually calls each other anymore these days, but I really wanted to hear his voice after seeing him nearly engulfed by a gigantic waterfall of blood. After pressing call on his contact screen, I was met with nothing. No rings at all. Instead, I was met with a busy dial tone, kind of a long, droning tone that never ends. I didn't actually start to get worried until I looked him up on Facebook to discover that his page was completely deleted. Okay, something bizarre was definitely going on here. The last time I checked, Alan was actually one of the few people I knew still active on Facebook, and I can't imagine a circumstance that would lead him to flat out delete his profile. After about 2 weeks in total of me trying to get in touch with him via text, phone calls, and a thorough social media search, I decided to do the one thing no one wants to do. I decided to reach out to his mom. I remembered her first name, Debbie, and was able to find her account on Facebook that way. I sent her a message asking how Alan's doing and if there's any way I could get in touch with him. After a day with no response, I decided to send her another, which finally, after all this time, got me a response from someone. Though her response would only confuse the ever-loving shit out of me, and changed my perception of reality forever. I think you have the wrong Debbie, sir. I don't have a son named Alan. In fact, I don't even have a son at all. Sorry to be of any inconvenience. She couldn't be serious. I stayed the night at her house countless times throughout high school, smoking cigarettes and carving bongs out of old water bottles in her basement on the weekends. How could she try to tell me she didn't have a fucking son? I went to her profile and scanned through her pictures. Every single family photo was what I would expect. Alan's stepdad and her, his stepsisters, and their dog Sparky. God, I can't believe how old that mutt is, but Alan himself was nowhere to be seen. Tired, confused, and at my wit's end, I decided to go to the factory Alan worked at in my dream in a last-ditch effort to find him. I thought maybe Alan was going through a tough time right now and just wanted to be a complete loner or something, which was fine by me. I completely understand wanting to be off on my own and not be bothered, but I just needed to make sure he was okay. I followed Clover Reed Lane south about 13 minutes at about 2:30 in the morning, just like Alan had instructed me weeks prior. But upon turning off into the large parking lot that used to be Alan's workplace, I realized I was actually veering off onto a dead-end dirt road that led to a large undeveloped plot of land. Where the factory once stood was now just a jungle of 5-foot-tall weeds, and the paved parking lot was now just a small patch of dirt. Judging by the muddy, beaten-up realtor sign, I'd say it's probably been on the market for some time now. I sat there, in my car, just taking in the scene. My mind was pretty much turned to mush by this point. If I looked up in the sky and saw Venus pummeling towards Earth at the speed of light, I'm not sure I'd be surprised at all. I'd probably just stare at it, waiting to see what happened next, like a baby shown an illusion. I was pretty much ready to peel out of there by this point, but figured since I took the time to travel out here, I might as well spend a little more time checking it out. I got out of my car with the flashlight on my phone turned on as bright as it could go. I walked along the dividing line where the dirt lot met the overgrown weeds. I walked up to where I had parked just a few weeks prior, now just a lonely patch of dirt. Feeling slightly nostalgic, I followed my invisible footprints from weeks prior up to where the front door of the factory would have been if it were still there. Instead, I was taken to a worthless, empty field. I couldn't believe it. Before turning around to head on back to my car, put the keys in the ignition, and drive back to my little apartment to never speak or even think of this again, I decided to instead turn my head down. I looked at the ground, at something glowing in contrast and reflection in my cell phone's bright light. It stuck out to me like a piece of silver in a pile of coal. I crouched down and shoved my hand into the pile of weeds, searching and feeling for whatever it was I had seen. Finally getting a grip on something I knew was not overgrowth, I pulled it out and held it in my hands. It was a shiny, little, red cup. The disposable kind you can buy down at the supermarket. The ones you might find at parties or office meetings. The kind you might buy if you're gonna have guests over but don't have enough glasses. The kind you might get if you're a little too lazy to do the dishes. The kind you might find in the basement of that non-existent factory. I knelt down, placing the cup back on the ground in front of the overgrown weeds, and walked back to my car, darting off in the moonlight's glow. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's narration. I want to give a huge thanks to last month's $5 and up patrons: Rain S, Coney Pone, Blood Fog, Amanda W, PDR, Gabriel B, James T, Benjamin K, Tim D28, Johnny H, Tyler P, Uncle Ulrich, and all the other $5 and up and $2 patrons on screen as well. All of your support makes these narrations possible, and I appreciate it a ton. If you'd like to join these lovely ghouls, I'd appreciate it if you check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you'll get an exclusive narration that will never, ever be uploaded to my channel. Usually, one a bit too extreme for YouTube. So that's at least one extra video every month for just $1, if not more. For $2 a month, you'll get thanked in the end scroll of every video, and for just $5 a month, I'll shout you out at the end of multiple videos a month personally. You also get exclusive Discord roles for those perks as well. If you'd like to chat with me for a bit, you can join me on a monthly live stream for just $10 a month and get a signed merch sticker for $25 a month. And if you're in the market for some horrifying shirts and hoodies, you can head on over to my Teespring store in the description as well. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at @2ndClancy. I want to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Have a good night, everybody. Cheers.